Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Jamie Landers. Thank you for joining us. Some alarming statistics came out of Banner Health as the medical services provider held a news conference to discuss COVID-19 updates and new policy changes at their facilities. Yesterday, Dr. Marjorie Bessel told reporters that COVID-19 related hospitalizations are up 95% at Banner Health and ventilator usage is up 300%. She contributes this increase to the highly contagious Delta variant that is spreading across the state and the country. Dr. Bessel also said unsatisfactory vaccination rates are a cause of this increase, since 97% of COVID hospitalizations and 99% of deaths are unvaccinated people. Due to the rise in COVID cases and hospitalizations, Banner Health has decided to enact new visitation restrictions.
Due to the increased COVID positivity and lower than optimal vaccination rates in Arizona, we have adjusted our visitor restrictions this week. As of yesterday, August 2nd, visitation at our facilities in Maricopa, Gila, and Pinal counties was reduced to 1 visitor per patient per day.
Dr. Bessel also shared that COVID-19 hospitalizations of children are on the rise. Cronkite News reporter Emily Carmen attended the Banner Health press conference and spoke with Phoenix Children's Hospital to learn how COVID-19 is affecting kids and pediatric care providers in Arizona.
COVID-19 is once again on the rise in Arizona, and the virus is particularly affecting unvaccinated individuals, including children.
Currently, pediatric patients account for about 5% of all of our COVID hospital admissions.
According to the Arizona Department of Health Services, people under 20 account for 17% of COVID cases in the state. This is a cause for concern for pediatricians, as an increase in COVID hospitalizations can put a strain on providers like Phoenix Children's Hospital.
At this point, obviously, we're still accepting all patients, but the concern is that if this rise continues to go up, you might have to start, looking at how can you divide resources to make sure that you're taking care of most patients.
And with children heading back to school soon, the risk of the virus spreading to unvaccinated children grows higher.
The recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics is basically to go back to in-person teaching because of all the benefits of being in the classroom, but at the same time continue to practice those preventative measures.
Preventative measures still include practicing social distancing, wearing a mask for anyone 2 years old and older, and most importantly,
we have many children under the age of 12 who are currently ineligible to become vaccinated. They are protected by the rest of us getting vaccinated so that we do not unknowingly transmit COVID to our pediatric children and patients.
In Phoenix, Emily Carmen, Cronkite News.
If you or someone you know wants to get vaccinated, please visit azdhs.gov to find a location. Speaking of COVID, 2 more Phoenix districts and Tucson's largest district have approved mask-wearing mandates. That's despite a state law barring school districts from requiring mask wearing. Today, Tucson Unified's board voted unanimously during an emergency meeting to require that all students and staff wear masks on campus to curb the spread of COVID-19. The Osborne and Roosevelt districts said their boards approved similar requirements yesterday. The state has enacted a prohibition against masking mandates by school districts, but it's unclear whether the prohibition is now binding. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced a new 60-day moratorium that will stop evictions in certain areas of the country with high or substantial transmission of COVID-19. It comes after a previous moratorium expired over the weekend. President Biden said the new moratorium will face legal scrutiny, but would provide the time needed for emergency rental assistance to reach troubled tenants.
The courts made it clear that the existing moratorium was not constitutional. It wouldn't stand. And they made that clear back in, I guess, July 15th or July 18th. In the meantime, what I've been pushing for and calling for is we have billions of dollars that we've given to states to provide for rent and utilities for those people who can't afford to stay in their homes because they can't, in apartments, they can't pay their rent. And so we're urging them to distribute those funds to the landlords.
The CDC says evicting people could be detrimental to public health and would interfere with efforts to slow the pandemic. The moratorium will remain in effect until October 3rd. And now, a look back on stories from our social justice team.
While the Black Lives Matter movement has been active for years, this past year, thousands more people participated around the world. After the murder of George Floyd in May 2020, social justice protesters erupted worldwide, demanding things such as police reform and economic and educational opportunities for communities of color. Reporter Isabella Fredrickson talked with experts in our community to see what kind of progress has been made 1 year later.
This past year, the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement has gained enormous attention. The same day George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, Deon Johnson, a black man, was killed by a Department of Public Safety trooper in Phoenix. Reflecting on this past year, President and CEO of Black Mothers Forum, Janelle Wood, explains how these events impacted 2020.
I believe that with the unfortunate murder of George Floyd and Deon Johnson, I believe really magnified and brought to the attention of America as a nation the atrocities and the trauma that we have been facing for decades here in America.
Sybil Francis, the president and CEO of the Center for the Future of Arizona, says that this past year gave us all a time to concentrate on these issues.
The 1 year anniversary of George Floyd's death, it really provided not just the Center for the Future of Arizona, but I think all of us with the opportunity to pause and reflect. Reflect on the basic truth that we have work to do in achieving a just and equitable society.
So where do we go from here? Wood says the key to moving forward is to unite and work together. One relationship Wood says needs work is the one between law enforcement and the Black community.
Yes, we know there's a problem with law enforcement and the Black community. Yes, we know that they are targeting us at times and we're being treated more with excessive force. We get that. But the only way we change this is to get to the table and develop relationships and humanize each other.
Francis says from here we need to listen, then share.
And I think it's been, on the one hand, heartbreaking, but also very inspiring to make change.
In Phoenix, Isabella Fredrickson, Cronkite News.
The Black Mothers Forum is one of many organizations that offer opportunities to come together and support communities of color. Recent events include a financial literacy webinar, and they are currently enrolling children in a summer empowerment program.
As we mark the 100th anniversary of this massacre, Cronkite News reporter Tina Giuliano spoke with an ASU professor who had a personal connection to this history.
100 years ago, violence flooded the streets of Tulsa, Oklahoma, after a black shoe shiner was accused of assaulting a white elevator operator. Now, years later, people are finding their connection to the tragedy and remembering this piece of history. ASU professor Olga Davis learned early that there were some things her family didn't want to talk about, but her dissertation led her to dive into her family's history at the Tulsa Race Massacre.
I didn't know much about it because during the time of my childhood, I was always told, never ask your father about your grandfather.
After talking with her 104-year-old aunt a few years ago,
she was a little girl at the time that the race riot happened.
Davis found that her grandfather was a doctor, and during the riots, he had to go out into the streets and identify the dead.
So they tagged him with some sort of note that said he was protected by the police, or some way that they were able to identify him, that he was a tagged medical person.
For the past few decades, Davis has been putting the pieces of this tragedy together, despite the hesitancy from her family to dredge up old memories.
So they didn't really talk about it because it was an embarrassment. Because also when you talk about something, you relive it. It's traumatic.
ASU professor Rashad Shabazz said the leaders in Tulsa, along with trauma and threats from other citizens, effectively buried this piece of history.
Destroyed evidence. They didn't do a lot of reporting. It was evacuated in large part from public memory.
Shabazz said he hopes that President Biden's acknowledgement of this dark time in our past opens up conversations.
I would like to see him stand on the side of reparations for the people of Tulsa. And I would really like him to open up a conversation for what reparations looks like for the descendants of slaves.
For Davis, she'll continue to put the pieces of this history together.
I hope we also say that as a nation, we shall never forget what happened to Tulsa.
According to Shabazz, information about this tragedy began to come out after the 1995 bombing in Oklahoma City. Since then, TV series like Watchmen and Lovecraft Country, as well as articles from people like Davis, have shed a light on the massacre. In the broadcast center, Tina Giuliano, Cronkite News.
As the country commemorated Juneteenth, volunteers in Tempe dedicated the newly recognized federal holiday to helping people in need. Cronkite News reporter Gianluca D'Elia takes us to Tempe's Juneteenth Day of Freedom, where COVID vaccines were distributed.
Some Maricopa County residents celebrated Juneteenth by getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Street Medicine Phoenix and the University of Arizona deployed more than a dozen volunteers to the Salvation Army in Tempe to help the homeless population get their shots. Members of the team say some of the area's most vulnerable populations have been hesitant to get vaccinated.
The largest issue that we have had thus far is individuals unfortunately having certain misconceptions or doubts about the vaccine, and it's sometimes very difficult to either persuade them or drive them on the other side of the fence to actually take the plunge and be protected.
This Juneteenth celebration was all about community wellness, so organizations from all over Maricopa County provided free resources like food, toys, a clean shower, a free haircut, and toiletry bags like this one. Organizers said their goal was to improve the mental health of people experiencing poverty in whatever way they could.
We really want to exemplify what Juneteenth is all about. It was much more than a day that just freed those who were enslaved. It really put a staple on the morality behind enslaving human beings, and it also was a collective effort really to free the mental unwellness of people around the world.
Since January, groups like Circle the City, working in partnership with Maricopa County, have administered the vaccine to some 4,000 people experiencing homelessness.
A lot of the work right now is just really making sure we're informing people, really giving them as much detail as possible, having conversations with them about what the vaccine is and its safety.
She says community events like this are one of many ways to improve access. Reporting in Tempe, Gianluca D'Elia, Cronkite News.
The CDC says people experiencing homelessness face a higher risk of COVID-19 during the pandemic. Maricopa County has dedicated more than $17 million to help those without housing.
A new market opened in Phoenix this week, and the business is generating a lot of buzz from foodies. Reporter Isabella Fredrickson visited the store to give us an inside look.
Business is already booming at the Chic Chef in Phoenix. Celebrity chef Nick Fields just opened up the marketplace, and she's already meeting great customers. Fields, who has cooked for celebrities such as Snoop Dogg, Sharon Stone, and professional athletes, created the space to serve as a foodie paradise. Every single item sold in the store is from her brand, The Chic Chef Co.
We have everything from kitchen utensils, oils, vinegars, sauces, and over 40 spice blends.
The business is a reflection of Fields' love for gourmet foods. You can find everything from olive oils, vinegars, spice blends, baking mixes, flavored syrups, and over 100 other specialty items. The market has already gained many customers, including other local chefs. Mirtha Pana, the head chef of Happy Friday Infusion Kitchen, stopped by the Chic Chef for the first time.
I'm so glad I came by because I find amazing products such as this garlic herb rice, which is a very rare product to get in Phoenix area.
Happy Friday Infusion Kitchen sous chef Dylan Suarez is happy to have found a place that offers diverse seasonings.
I ended up getting some Merlot wine finishing sea salt. Looks like a super elegant product, definitely gonna go nice on a steak.
Fields is also planning to open a restaurant right next door. In Phoenix, Isabella Fredrickson, Cronkite News.
As the first Black-owned proprietary market in the state, meaning she only carries her own products, Fields acknowledges that she has some big shoes to fill, but says she is ready.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. On Break It Down, the impact the diversity conversation has had on many people of color. That's next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.